we're going to do this week is week 2 of the Megillah. But don't worry, because it's a self-contained shir. What I want to do today actually is an amazing topic. We're going to look at a few very, very, very fundamental components of Megillah and just try to understand it a little bit better. Let's actually start with the following. 1. If you can turn, please, to source go to Perek Zayin. So I'll just remind you of what happens. In Perek Zayin is very important. Esther goes, after fasting for 3 days, she goes to plead on behalf of the Jewish people. Right? Now, we know there's a few things going on here. There's this evil guy, his name is Haman. He had planned to destroy the entire Jewish people on the 13th day of Adar. Letters were sent out. They were sealed by the approval of the king. But on this day, the Jewish people were going to be wiped out. So, comes along Esther, and what does she need to do? Go to the king, and what is her goal? Tell me, what will define success, in your opinion? Getting rid of the decree. Very good. Failure to get rid of the decree will be considered unsuccessful, right? Is that fair? Is that fair?
Right.
Then you succeed, right? Now, so my question is she successful? Look at Perek Zayin. So, anyone recall what does Esther say that morning? Which is in the previous parak? Come to a party, right? Okay. So, what do you think? If you were Esther, what would you say to the king? King, only you, a good-looking, powerful man that you are, could help with. And after all, I'm your beautiful, lovable wife, princess. What?
70-year-old green wife.
Right, whatever it is, right? And if that's the case, I'm speaking on behalf of the Jewish people. I am Jewish, by the way, you need to say the people. After all, I'm your queen. You love me. I love you. Help us out. So, look how she starts off. What does she say? If I found favor in your eyes, good move. That's a good way to start, right? Imal Meltov. Give what I want, my soul's desire, request, and my request of my people. Fair. But look what she says. Kinim karnu anivami. We've been sold, myself, my people, lashmi larog labeid, to be utterly destroyed. All right. You'd think maybe strategically she would say, please help. My people are going to be destroyed. Not bad, but what's this nim karnu? It's a very strange word. What do you mean kinim karnu? We were sold to be destroyed. Now, she's probably referencing what? The money that was sent to his Swiss bank account that Haman got, right? But why would you mention that? Because that's also going to make the king look bad, no? Not a smart strategic move to make. You just say, forget the word nim karnu. It's awkward here. Just say, what? Ani v'ami. Ki anachnu, or we've been decreed, or whatever the word we want to use, to be destroyed. Very strange. Kinim karnu. Our people have been sold off to be destroyed. Very awkward phrase. This is totally whacked. If we would have been sold into slavery, I wouldn't be here. I would have kept quiet. After all, Kin Hatzar Shaveh Ben Nezek Hamelach. Because you make a lot of money per hour. So would I come here and waste your time? No, that's not the case, King. It's not the case that people were sold into slavery. But had it been the case, Mr. Powerful, good-looking, macho king, I would be here. Because now waste your time. Your time is very valuable. So the only reason why I'm here is because my people were sold to be destroyed. What? Are you kidding me? That doesn't make any sense. Does that make any sense? What in the world? Oh, that's terrible. What in the world is the king arguing? It's Esther arguing to the king. Okay. Let's go to the... Oh, by the way, what ends up happening? Scan the next couple psukim. What's the result of this conversation? What happens? What's the bottom line? No, Tachlis. What? Haman is sentenced to death. Beautiful. Question. What about the decree? What? Nothing. Excellent. Is she successful or unsuccessful? Unsuccessful. Having Haman killed perhaps is part of it, but at the end of the day, removing the decree and having Haman alive is way more important. So ultimately we'd say failure. Second time she goes to Achashverosh. Next parak. Pasuk Gimel. She continues to speak. And what did she say? My cave. She cries. She's chanin. She bleeds. Lahavir es ra'as Haman agagi. Right? The decree. What does he do? Lowers the scepter. But now we know what the plan is. Hey. Tomer Yamachto. Kasher davar v'nei melech v'tavani beinav. You guys hear the sucking up, right? Good, right? Yikasev v'hashiv dasvei machashavas Haman ben Amtasag yasher kasav l'beresh yudim asher b'dinos hamalach. Now, here we go. What's her line? She stated the fact, and now here's this important line. Ki eich acha uchal v'ra'isi b'ra'a asher yimtza es ami. Eicha. Alas, oy vezmir, how can I find myself and see the evil that's happened to my people? And how can I be here? Alas, how could it be that I will see the death and destruction of Muladati, of my homeland, my heritage, whatever the case may be? Interesting. What's the approach here? What was the approach earlier? Now, what's going to happen? Will this be successful?
No, exactly.
Will this pasuk? So, it's two pasukim. What happens? What's the aftermath? What's the result of this?
He sends out another decree, yeah?
Nullify that other decree. All right.
He gave based on the Esther suggestion.
Right. To nullify, but at least there's a letter that's enough to nullify the decree, right? It's pretty good. What I want to do is, I want to show you where we've come up with almost the exact same psukim before in the Torah. I think it'll shed light a little bit on what's going on. Because at the end of the day, the Megillah is not just about God is hidden and we live with God in our lives. It has a much more, I think, personal dimension to it. National dimension to it as well. I'll explain. Take a look. Turn the page. Page 4. There's only two times in the entire Torah, two times in the entire Tanakh where this word is found. Ki nimkarnu ani v'ami.
What are you saying?
4 minutes ago.
What? Okay.
Ki nimkarnu ani v'ami. What does that mean? So, just to bring everybody up to speed, we are looking at what will hopefully be an extremely insightful aspect into the Megillah. And we started by reading the psukim that pertains to how Esther went to the king. The first time Esther goes to the king, she says something totally wackadood. She says to the king, "King, please, ki nimkarnu ani v'ami, we were sold, myself and my people, lashmida rogul abeiruk, to be destroyed." Right? If, however, we would have been sold into slavery, if we would have been sold into slaves, hacharashti, I would have been silent. Why? Ki en etzar shaveh b'nezek hamelech. I'm not going to waste your time. You know how crazy this is? She goes to the king and says, "King, we were sold to be killed. Had we just been sold into slavery, I'd be silent. I wouldn't waste your time." Meaning, you make $1 million an hour. For me to come and waste your time, had the decree would have been for us to be sold, I wouldn't have said anything. But the decree wasn't for us to be sold. The decree was for us to be destroyed. Do me a favor. Help me. Who does that? Who speaks like that? Who says, "Oh, it's worthwhile because we're going to be destroyed and not sold"? Why does she need to mention anything about being sold? Just say, "We're being destroyed." Why does she bring up sold twice? Kinim karnu. Second, but what's the result of that conversation? Haman is hanged. But the decree is totally alive and well. So at the end of the day, she failed. Having Haman killed is great, but there's still this evil decree, which is still hanging over everybody. The second time she goes to Achashverosh, she says, "Alas, however, it's going to fall of my nation. Bira asher yimsasami. Again, she pleads to Achashverosh and says, "Alas, Eicha, how can this be that my people are being destroyed? You must rescind the decree," and he allows, and Achinam made the decree, they send a letter, done. It's successful. What I want to do is, I want to go back to an earlier story in the Torah that you're all very familiar with. And if we look at the earlier story in the Torah, you'll appreciate and you'll understand what really is going on here. And that's what I want to do today. It will make Megillah a completely different story when you have this knowledge. If you don't appreciate this component of the Megillah, you're missing what I think is the essence of what it's all about. Follow me. Turn to page 4, right in smack in the middle. We did those sources above last week. Let's go. Story. Vayomer Yehuda lechav. Yehuda turns to his brethren. Ma betza kin harog esachinu v'chisinu estamo. What does Yehuda say in that pasuk? Hello, what does that mean? Ma betza. What do we gain from
Killing our brother.
What and covering his blood? What should we do instead? Chavzayin.
To Ishmaelim.
Ladies, v'nim kirenu is spelled the exact same way as kinim karnu. Just this is vowelized different. Come back to that. Let's sell him. Why should we sell Yosef? Because we love him?
And we didn't kill him.
We didn't kill him. He gets sold. Now, what's fascinating is the following. Who sells Yosef? Who said Yosef to sell Yosef? Yehuda. Okay. When Yehuda comes many years later and pleads to Yosef, thinking that Yosef is just the viceroy of Egypt, look at the argument that he tells him. Go down, please, to Parak Mem, 2 sources down. Omer Yehuda, what am I going to say to my master? Right? How can I justify what we did? My master, you have found this iniquity of our servants. We are your slaves. And even that person whose goblet was found. What's his response? What does Yosef say? No. The only person who will be my slave will be the person who stole the silver goblet. Where was the silver goblet found? In the sack of Binyamin. Vatem, Shalom Aleichem. Vayom Rav Dachavi Aleichem, Atay Yadatem, Kishnam Yadal Ishti. Comes along Yehuda and beseeches Yosef. And what does he say? Shnayim Yadal Ishti. My 2 kids were born to my wife. Wait a second. What's the problem with that statement? What's Yehuda saying? When Yehuda gets up and says to Yosef that my dad said my wife had 2 kids. Huh? That's not true. What's he saying? Which wife is he referring to? Rachel. Yehuda is a descendant of Leah. Keep that in mind. Let's go on. If you take him and something happens, our souls are bound together. Go down. This is what I want to show you. Lamed Ki ech ele elavi v'na'ar einenu iti. Says Yehuda, how can I go up to my father and my lad is not with me? Hear the words? Penerev v'ra'ah asher yimtza es avi. Let's read that pasuk again, and let's read the words of Esther. Listen. Ki ech ele elavi v'nar einenu iti penerev v'ra'ah asher yimtza es avi. What are Esther's words? Esther's words are in Perek Ches, Ki echacha uchal v'ra'isi v'ra'ah asher yimtza es ami. Ve'echacha uchal v'ra'isi v'ovdan moladiti. Do you hear the echo in those 2 psukim? There's an echo that's going on here. The Esther's words are quite the same, right? But the emphasis is Ami and Avi. Esther is talking about my nation. Yehuda is talking about his father. Yehuda gets up and he says, you can't do this for the sake of my father. Mordechai is an Ish Yehudi Haya B'Shushan Abira. When the Torah Megillah says Ish Yehudi Haya B'Shabira, what does that mean? He's a Jew, no? But what tribe is he from? Go. Let's go and let's understand something. Go to Perek Gimel. No, I mean Perek Bet, in the middle there. Okay. Ish Yehudi Haya B'Shabira Mordechai ben Yair ben Shri ben Kish Ish. Mordechai is from the tribe of Binyamin. So why is he identified as Ish Yehudi? Answer.
Exactly
what
Yehuda did to...
Let's go through this for a second. Remember, at the time, the 10 tribes have disappeared. Everyone becomes a Yehudi. Right? Mm-hmm. He comes from the tribe of Yehuda. But remember, where Yehuda Binyamin bordered. They bordered. So some people from Binyamin survived the split. Remember the destruction of the two tribes and the 10 tribes? So the 2 tribes survived. Who were those 2 tribes? Binyamin and Yehuda. Shimon joined Yehuda's tribe, but that's Sefer Yeshua. But because Yehuda was considered the larger tribe, they were called Yehudim. When it says Ish Yehudi, it meant he was the survivor, but you should know he came from the tribe of Binyamin. He's one of the remnant people from Binyamin. That's what Megillah wants. Why do I care? Because who does Esther come from? Esther comes from Shaul. What tribe is Shaul? Now, Shaul is from also Binyamin, no? I think so, right? And what we see here, that what's going to happen, is that the tribe of Binyamin is coming to save who? The rest of the Jewish people. meaning Yehuda, no? Once again, we have this tension of the children of Leah and the children of Rachel. We have the tension of who is going to survive, who is going to live. Let's go back. Last week, we all sat here, many of us sat here, and I pointed out something very important. When Mordechai originally tells Esther in Perek Dalet that the Jewish people are going to be destroyed, what's her response? Why can't I do it? She should call me, I might die. What's Mordechai's response to her, which is very odd? Someone else will do it. Ravach v'hatzala yamod lo yidim makom acher. The Jews will survive. Va'at u'beit avich tovedu. You'll be destroyed. Miyodea in leit kazos higas l'mochos. Who knows this is the reason why I became queen? What Mordechai says is, Yehuda somehow will survive, the Yehudim, but you, Shevet Binyamin, somehow will be destroyed. You see, when Yehuda gets up and defends his brother Binyamin, what could Yehuda have done? Yehuda could have gone home and said, Dad, listen, I know I promised you I'm supposed to save Binyamin. But I got to tell you something, Dad. Your son's a crook. Like, when I accept responsibility to save Binyamin and help him, did I think he would steal a $20 million silver goblet from the viceroy? The guy's a crook, Dad. At least we're alive. And by the way, at least Binyamin's not dead. What did Yosef say he was going to do to Binyamin? Take him as a slave. But not kill him. Ilu lishvachos lavadim avaditi charashti. What does Esther say the first time? When Esther goes to Achashverosh, what does Esther say? If we would have been sold, I would have been quiet. But instead, what did she say? We're going to be destroyed, so I'm going to speak up. Yehuda, she almost has this like guilt. The tribe of Binyamin has this guilt of what took place many, many years earlier, about this tension that exists. And what does she say? She says, this wasn't sold into slavery. I stood up a Binyamin. There's a time in history where someone prevented someone and stood up for them. And because after all, they were sold into slavery. They almost died, so I'm going to stand up too, maybe. And after all, we're not being sold. We just might die. But that's not a successful argument, and it fails. Achashverosh doesn't rescind the decree. Meaning, Esther is not arguing properly. She's arguing out of guilt about what happened many, 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 many years earlier about this moment. That's, I think, what the Megillah. The Megillah, because otherwise the psukim don't make any sense whatsoever. What's with this selling and not being killed? Why is it like, well, yeah, he sells it. And which is about silence. So I think what the Megillah is telling us something very profound. The Megillah is saying, go back to that story of Yehuda and Binyamin, the tension between Ish Yehudi and Ish Yemini. And what Mordechai is telling her is saying, Yehudim will survive, Binyamin maybe will be destroyed. You got to speak up. So she speaks up. Because, remember, there was another time where Yehudim stood up for Binyamin. So now what is Esther doing? Binyamin is standing up for the Yehudim. She says, I can save the day. I can tit for tat. They saved me, I can save them. I can repay this favor, this debt that's been in existence. After all, they're not being sold. They're being destroyed, so I better speak up.
Wait, I'm so confused, because she's doing less than Yehuda did. Because,
yeah, why?
Because Yehuda said, even being sold isn't good enough, you better come back alive and well.
Mm-hmm.
And Esther's saying, so she's doing less. She's like, I'll only do it,
Meaning, if it had just been sold, I would have said nothing.
Right.
Again, so she realized there's a greater danger, so she was, it's not, you're true, right. Meaning, it's not good enough.
Right.
Agreed. She failed to really pay back the debt. Meaning, there was something missing there. It wasn't sufficient. How do you know it wasn't sufficient? Her argument wasn't successful. But now look at what happens when what? The second time. Whose conversation does she mimic? Yehuda's conversation. It is Yehuda's conversation, which is the ideal conversation of responsibility. What's a conversation? How can I do it? It's not fair to my father. And what does she say? I'm willing to step up because my people will be destroyed. Not splitting Yehuda from Binyamin. My people, my people will be destroyed. I'm going to do something, king. Not repaying a debt, but rather my people will be destroyed. I can't sit here and be quiet when my people, but it's not all the people. Wouldn't she be okay? True. She would be okay. Just like Yehuda would have been okay if he would have gone home. But now she steps up. She says, I can't sit here and do nothing. I need to say something. And with the words that she mimics, of Yehuda, that seems to save the day, and the king responds. Isn't that neat? Now, take a look at something else. How does the Megillah end? What's the last line of the Megillah? Top of page 2. No. Where is it? Oh, no, top of page 4, sorry. Perak Yud. Look at that last line. Ki Mordechai Yehudi Misham HaChashosh Gadol V'Yehudi V'Ratzu L'Ravechav. Doresh Tov Lamo V'Daver Shalom L'Chol Zaro. Mordechai Yehudi is a viceroy in the palace of Achashverosh. Gadol Yehudim. He's pretty high up there. Ratzu L'Ravechav. He's desired by the multitude of his brethren. Doresh Tov. He seeks good for his nation. And he speaks peace for all the children, the descendants. Why does Megillah end like this? Who else is a viceroy? Who else is second in command? Of course, Yosef. It's a given. There's another person, there's another non-Jew who rises to the top, right? Now look at the last line. He's Doresh Tov L'Amo. Dover Shalom L'Chol Zaro. Go to the bottom of page 4. Why did they hate Yosef? They failed to do what? Lo yachlu dabro l'shalom. Mordechai, however, was Doresh Tov Lamo, Dover Shalom L'Chol Zaro. The opposite of what happened with Yosef and his brothers. I believe the Megillah is telling us that this tension that exists between Yehuda and Binyamin, with Yehuda, the children of Leah, and the children of Rachel. Tension always exists. When Yehuda got up to Yosef and says, Shenayim Yolda li ishti, he's admitting that Rachel was a favorite mother. It took a lot of guts for him to say that, didn't it? But that's the guts that he needed to save the Jewish people, to save Binyamin. Meaning that there, almost as if there existed this, not just an unpaid debt, but this true reconciliation between these two tribes, these two fractions of Klal Yisrael are still existing. There wasn't this real sense of cohesiveness yet. The cohesiveness comes perhaps in Megillat Esther, when Binyamin recognizes, Esther, the descendant of Binyamin, recognizes that it's not about us and them, but we're in it together. It's not about, I'll die and you'll live. No, it's about our nation, our people together. If I'm not successful, we're all going to perish. Just like Yehuda's argument. Just like Esther could have walked away and everything would have been okay, she would have lived. Yehuda could have walked away and he would have lived. But instead, Yehuda put his neck on the line. Yehuda took a chance. He said, no, I can't allow this to happen. Esther finally said, I can't allow this to happen. I need to do something. And it was Mordechai who finally was able to be Doresh, his generation, was able to finally seek peace. Up until now, perhaps there wasn't proper peace. Lo yachlu dabro l'shalom was always in the back of their minds and always existed. There are so many other parallels between the Yosef story and the Megillat Esther story. Right? I believe it's clearly a foil. It's clearly something which the Megillah is trying to highlight and to accent us.
Story repeats itself.
But it's more than just repeating itself. It's not a repetition, right? It's almost as if there's this tension that still exists. Something has to be rectified, but now it's flipped, right? But were the lessons really learned before? Now they're going to come into play. Now they're really going to be challenged. And now we're going to see who's going to respond. And now we're going to see, will Esther step up to the plate? And that's why, by the way, you know what's called Megillat Esther? Why is it called Megillat Mordechai? And why is it called Ta'anit Esther? When did Esther really fast? She fasted in Nisan. She didn't fast in Adar. We fast on the 13th day of Adar because that was the day the Jewish people were supposed to be destroyed. Because I'll say, when the day that you went to war, you fasted to show that God will give you strength to fight the war. So why are they called Tanya Esther? She didn't fast now. The answer is, let's go back to what we said last week and what we're going to say, what we said today. Esther is the one that goes through this tremendous transformation of Perek Dalet, where she realizes, and yes, it takes her time, but she realizes that she needs to somehow save Klal Yisrael. She could walk away. She could take a step back and not get involved. Then what would be the result? It would be catastrophic. It was her transformation, says Rav Aaron Lichtenstein used to say, that it was Esther's transformation that we have to identify as in Ta'anit Esther. That just like in the times of Shushan and Esther, they had to ask, are they going to be relevant? Esther was asked, are you going to be relevant? Are you going to be irrelevant? Are you going to step up to the plate? Or are you going to be a coward and back away? That question is the question of Purim, of Ta'anit Esther. Are we going to be relevant? Are we going to be able to have an impact on Klal Yisrael? Or are we going to say, nah, it's not me, everything will be okay, I'll be okay, so therefore other things can happen, it doesn't really concern me. That's the real question of Ta'anit Esther. And so I think that's the message of perhaps an ability to come back together, an ability to really make things change, a ability to make things better is what Purim is. It's much more than just God is hidden. There's no mention of God in the Megillah. I think it's much more than that. You can accomplish all that not by writing 10 chapters. Right? Accomplish that by writing just a couple of prakim. But I think it's clear that Torah wants to bring us to the parallels of Yehuda and to Binyamin and to Yosef, the Yosef narrative, and to see what will happen many years later. What will the response be of their descendants? Will they really be able to make a difference and have an impact or not? Or are they going to let things happen just like Yehuda let things happen and then transformed afterwards? Same idea, what will happen in times of Shushan Habira with Mordechai and Esther. And by the way, we know, right, this takes place in a foreign land with non-Jewish kings, just like Yosef. Yosef is non-Jewish kings. He dresses up like the king, is the clothes of the king. Mordechai is the clothes of the king, right? Mordechai is also Mishnah LaMelech Achashverosh, and Yosef is Mishnah LaParo. So many parallels. So many parallels, and that's part of the hidden message of the Megillah, is what is going to be the response. Just like Yehuda stepped up to the plate to save Binyamin, Esther gets the courage and finally also begins to step up to Achashverosh, and therefore finally have the decree rescinded, and therefore allow the Revach and Hatzalah of the Jewish people to take place by Yamim Haim, and hopefully also Bisman Hazan. Thank you.
Thank you.